Hey, we've got a cracking guest on tonight. We're going to be discussing the family food environment.
And make sure to stay tuned because we've got one of the most original 60-second CPDs we've ever had on Veterinary Ramblings.
You're absolutely right there, Mike. So without further ado, let's have on Georgia Woods-Lee.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Ho.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Georgia, you know all there is to know about nutrition. Pretty much. Let's put it this way. You know more about nutrition than, I would say,
Mike does.
Everyone in practice. And Mike and me.
I might know one or two things. I'll admit that.
and let that be your introduction. Georgia, who knows more about nutrition than Mike and me.
Okay.
But you should, because you are the Royal Canin nutritionist at the University of Liverpool, are you not?
I run the weight management clinic at the University of Liverpool, yes. And I suppose I deal with a lot of nutrition in doing that. And I am also involved with nutrition within the hospital too. So
you're also one of the co-authors of the new BSAVA nutrition manual.
Yes. Yeah, the nutrition guide is available now. And it is ever expanding, so there is more to come from the nutrition guide, certainly in the pipeline.
Is that because it eats lots of carbohydrates?
Carbs aren't bad, you know, it's okay.
Is it ever expanding? Is it an ever expanding waistline, or is it just getting thicker and thicker because there's more knowledge?
Yes, I'm going to go with the more knowledge. Yeah. Okay.
and that's the same with Mike and myself. We're getting
absolutely
thicker and thicker. Actually, Mike's getting thinner and thinner. I'm still getting thicker and thicker. I'm doing at the moment. I'm doing the before photos. Yeah. Getting ready for those. So when eventually I have my name in the Slimming magazine, I want to make sure the before photos are really really shocking.
Yeah.
So still working on those ones. So how long have you been at the University of Liverpool for?
So 6.5 years. I've been there, but I've been dealing with weight for probably the last 15 years as part of my day job. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And that's as a registered veterinary nurse?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, this really does beg the question then, Georgia, is what got you into it?
So the nutrition, I think, came about because I worked in a big referral hospital, and it's all very busy, and everybody seems to have the thing that they like doing or that they are, particularly good at. And it became very apparent that nobody really liked speaking to clients. Like that bit was, I would much rather be in theatre or, sort of behind the scenes a little bit. And as a trainee nurse, I sort of found actually I really enjoyed talking to the clients. And I think the nutrition and the weight loss came very quickly on the back of that. It was a very natural progression into having those conversations. And then it became really apparent that this was actually something I could do. I didn't necessarily need the vet for that. I could give information and advice on my own. I could create a plan and get results, and I could help. And I think that's why nutrition, and still actually why it's nutrition for me.
Right. So had you any leanings towards that before you went into that area?
So I think I've always been slightly obsessed with weight. Okay. as a sort of a personal thing. I haven't shared my before and after pictures with you, but I have some fairly shocking pictures of me back in the day, and I think
for the benefit of our listeners, stop trying to look over the top of the screen, Julian. For the benefit of our listeners, I think it has to be said that Georgia is probably best described as having a slight frame.
I think it's the angle.
It's the angle.
No, I know Georgia well. I've seen her many a time, and I would describe her as svelte, lissome.
Svelte and lithesome. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, I will take that.
So you have your own history and your own battles then from that. Would you be kind enough to share that with us?
Absolutely. So this is, so I have 2 children. So it was pre-children actually that I would have been classed as overweight if I'd been to the doctors or something like that. And then 2 pregnancies and quite a lot of weight gain during that. I ended up quite a lot bigger than I am now, and decided, well, probably should do something about it. But I'm pretty sure that the sort of weight loss things don't work. Weight Watchers and all that, and Slimming World and many others, they can't work. So I decided to go along to Weight Watchers just to prove it didn't work. And and 20 kilos later, I had to kind of admit that, okay, it works. And so, I lost the 20 kilos over
20
about...
kilos?
Yeah. So it was a border collie, something like that. So I lost that over about 5-6 months, something like that. And although I put more back on again with the second pregnancy and had to do it all over again, I'm at least net down from where I started. But it's a constant battle, and I think maybe that is why I can empathise with my patients, because I know the struggles personally. It's not easy. I have to think about it every single day. And with it being part of my job as well, I suppose I do nothing else other than think about food and weight and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a sort of a personal interest as well, I think.
Wow.
Interesting that you use those words, constant battle. And I guess, I always say I don't have a problem with food. I just eat the stuff. But actually, it's not true. I do have to watch at some stage how much I eat and what I eat and what I drink. And it is a constant battle. It is a feeling that you see this wonderful load of food and drink around. You think, I'm going to keep on having that. But there has to be some higher trigger, doesn't there, to go in to say, no, let's be sensible about this for whatever future concerns or fears or worries you may have.
Absolutely. I think we're all motivated by different things as well. I was partly motivated to be a good example to my children. It sort of makes sense that I didn't want them to have to, struggle and think about this their whole lives. So it's being a bit mindful of that, being mindful of health and that kind of thing. And it's interestingly not that big a driver, though. Actually, we all do things we purposely know are bad for our health, because it's not immediate enough. It happened too far down the line. So that was maybe part of it. But and then really sort of very honestly, I suppose it was about looks. It was about confidence. It was about, feeling good in my skin, that sort of thing, I suppose, which I don't, we're not immune to that. I think
well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, is there? We need to feel comfortable, and there are people who are obese who feel comfortable with that, and why not? To some extent, to every extent, it's their own lives. If they're comfortable, fine. If you're not comfortable, that's an awful feeling, isn't it? If you're overweight and you are aware that you're not comfortable being overweight, then that's horrible.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's very difficult to live with, because that fixes aren't going to come quickly. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be prolonged effort, and that seems like a massive thing to sort of undertake. And I know from personal experience, sometimes I'm in a place where I can think about food and be careful, and other times I'm really not. And I don't have the sort of the mental strength to be careful with what I'm doing. And, I will indulge more often than I probably should, and then think, I can't do something about this again. And so it goes on.
Do you have an indicator that tells you, a favourite belt or something like that, that suddenly, if it's just a little bit too tight, maybe you're going to have to pay attention to this? What do you use to put yourself back on?
Someone who knows that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no question.
My work scrub top, actually, I use as a bit of a barometer for what my weight's doing. I have to really tug it down, and then I'm like, oh God, because that one's quite a sort of a fixed thing, I suppose. It's not really stretchy, so I get a good indicator. I'm like, oh gosh, better do something.
So we've all hopefully had a thoroughly enjoyable Christmas, and we've probably all slightly overindulged, and our scrub tops might not be quite as, or they might be a bit snugger.
I've asked Santa for a bigger scrub top.
Very good call. Good call, Julian. Well done. Okay. So our scrub top is a little bit snugger than it perhaps ought to be. So what's your first step there? I mean, I'm only asking you here because you've lost over 45 pounds, presumably, twice now. And have obviously kept the weight off.
Not all of it, I have to say. So what do I do first? I suppose I think, am I ready? Is this the right time for me to be doing this? Have I got something really stressful coming up? Have I got, very busy life in the next sort of 2-3 months, something like that? Mm-hmm. And if I have, I recognize that probably isn't the best time to start. I need to be, my mind needs to be freer to concentrate on doing it, because it does take a lot of concentration. It's every meal, it's every day. It has to be thought about and planned and that sort of thing. And then I suppose, because I've tried so many diets at this point, it's more difficult for me because I always find a new approach. It works best. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, what else I can try? But I suppose if you've tried something and it's worked before and it wasn't, desperate while you were doing it, then do it again. There's no reason it wouldn't work for a second time. And I have gone back to things that I've done before and been successful again.
Right. So you've got something big happening at the end of January. Don't try and achieve everything on January the 1st because it's new year, new resolution. Let's jump on this and make it happen. You're saying allow yourself a little bit of latitude, acknowledge that you are where you are, set out your plan that you're going to do something about it, looking forwards, acknowledging that you may have difficulty if you're, going on a world tour, whatever, starting in January, that might not be the best time to start doing this. Or it might be a bit too stressful, or you've got a wedding coming up or a series of birthdays, and then start your plan, building it and setting it to start once that pressure and once that diversion is over. So, okay.
Being the right headspace, I think, is what I would say.
Yeah. So I've always maintained from my own battles with weight that the only way to lose weight is to have a bit of a lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. That's to lose weight and keep it off. So you can go on a diet, you can reduce the number of calories you have, or intermittent fast, as Mike and I were discussing earlier, as the sort of more modern term. But actually, if you want to not have those problems with weight, and you want to lose weight and keep it off, then there's got to be a bit of a lifestyle change, isn't there? Do you agree?
Yeah, there definitely has. I mean, there's that saying, isn't there? Nothing changes if nothing changes. And I think, that is just so true. You can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. So you have to look at what you can change, what you're prepared to change, because it's you might know what you have to do, but are you really able to give up the red wine? I mean, is it necessary? So there's lots of kind of questions, I suppose, around, the changes that might be necessary. And so maybe it's evaluating problem areas and looking what you could do in those particular areas and that sort of thing. No drinking Monday to Friday, that sort of thing, It's miserable, but it's doable. But yeah, so I think that you certainly do have to. And I think, we haven't really talked much about exercise alongside it, but for me, the exercise is what actually keeps me compliant with the food, because exercise doesn't have a massive effect on weight loss. It has quite a small one. It's all in the food. So for me, regularly exercising is about, well, if I'm doing this, I'm putting all this effort in, then I'm going to stick to it. I don't want to undo all that effort by by cheating on what.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, the exercise is very good then for your mental health and your outlook. I find that when I'm doing more exercise, I tend to eat healthier.
Yeah.
If
you feel good.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got our we've had our Christmas binge, and you've set our goal for us. And unfortunately, my big chocolate Labrador also had a good Christmas binge, and I'm going to bring him to you. What's the advice going to be?
Well, there's a lot that goes before the actual advice. So the first thing that I need to know is just everything about you and your chocolate Labrador, your lifestyle, your routines, what is needed and when, what expectations your Labrador has, what medical things has your Labrador got going on. And then there isn't any getting away from it. We do need a calorie restricted diet of some sort. It's the only physical way to get weight loss. But how that is, what food we choose, when it's given, how much is given, that all really depends on you and your Labrador.
Right. So
because clients will sometimes say, well, I'll just cut his food down. And is that always the best thing to do or not?
Well, I mean, I would say if there's lots of sort of treats, scraps, chews, that sort of thing, then yes, definitely cutting back on all those. If they've been, having pigs in blankets and bits of turkey and stuff, well, okay, we need to leave those alone now. But generally, just doing that alone probably won't get weight loss. It'll probably just stop further weight gain. So just cutting the food is not something I would recommend, because we then can unbalance their diets. Really, they need a specific diet for weight loss to make sure we're doing it safely, because we don't want to harm them in the process.
No, I was going to backtrack a little bit because you mentioned pigs in blankets. I'm aware that a lot of our listeners are in America, and they may not know that actually an English tradition is to have a pig sent to us on Christmas Eve, a live pig, and we wrap it in a blanket and we nurture it. And if we're good little boys and girls and this pig survives the night comfortably, then we can send it back to the farm and they give us presents.
No.
The Christmas pig.
No, it does. Really?
No, Julian, you can't say that.
Can't I?
No.
Am I misleading people?
Yes.
Okay.
Please explain.
Pigs in blankets, the sausages wrapped in bacon, and they're delicious. If you've never had a sausage wrapped in bacon, then there's one word for you, and that's vegetarian. Anyway, English pigs in blankets.
Right.
Wonderful things. So they're not going to just be feeding fewer pigs in blankets to their dogs. They're going to give a balanced diet, and ideally a calorie restricted one or a reduced calorie diet.
Yes. Yeah, they absolutely will need to, because you can't get weight loss without sort of offsetting that energy balance. And so reducing calories is the only way, but there are easier ways or harder ways of doing that. Yes, if you eat less, you will lose weight, but it'll probably be very hard. You'll probably be very hungry.
But he, 3:00 every afternoon when I have my pot of tea, he has to have his couple of digestive biscuits with his saucer of tea.
Absolutely.
Because it's tradition, isn't it?
Bit of squirty cream on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves it. Is there anything else that maybe he could have instead that he would like equally?
Cheese and crackers.
What about some watermelon or some courgette?
Oh, watermelon and courgette. Now there's a thing, isn't it?
Really?
Because dogs aren't really very good at distinguishing between types of food, are they?
No, they don't have. They can smell, but they don't taste so well. So yeah, it's much more about the act of giving that's important to them rather than what the food actually is. So as long as it's palatable from their point of view, they're more than happy. Yes, they would prefer your digestive biscuit, but if that's all that's on offer, a bit of watermelon.
Dogs are intelligent, aren't they? And they understand what we say to them. And they're only limited in responding because they don't have vocal cords like we do. But they understand every word that we say, which might explain why when I give Poppy tasty morsels of fillet steak and I say to her to savour it, she sort of cocks her head on one side and looks at me confused. What? And obviously, it's the word savour.
It must be. It must be. Yeah. Yeah.
So can you repeat?
So that's it.
Just...
Dogs don't understand, do they? They really don't. They understand a few key words. What they understand is they might get a bit of food if they beg, and that shouldn't be encouraged anyway.
Ideally not. No, I mean,
as long as they sit to the table with their napkin on, then it's fine.
If you want to make that rod for your back, then go ahead.
Okay, rod?
No, it's probably has a gold knife and fork.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm beginning to wonder if I'm getting this pet parenting right.
You're doing perfectly, I think. Perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah. So would you recommend clients get a commercial diet or make one up themselves?
I would always recommend a commercial diet, mainly because trying to make it yourself at home is just virtually impossible. And even if you do follow a recipe, you've still no idea whether what you actually give your dog is complete for them and balanced and giving them everything that they need to be. Whereas most manufacturers where you buy food for, certainly in the UK, the rules are so strict on, the way that they're manufactured, we can rely on them, that they are what they say they are and have in them everything that they need. So yeah, it would always be a commercial diet from my point of view, except there is an exception, except when, sometimes they might have complex medical needs and there isn't a diet, then, home prepared diets can be formulated for them. But it takes a specialist to do that, and it should only be done, with guidance.
And that would be someone like you that they'd approach and say, my dog can't have X, Y, or Z. Could you devise a diet for me to suit?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I do for our patients at Liverpool. Outside of that, it would be some sort of board certified nutritionist, veterinary nutritionist that you would need for that, to be certain.
But actually, a lot of people are worried about commercial diets, aren't they? They believe there's some huge conspiracy that the dog food manufacturers are trying to pull. I just see them as people who've got a lot of experience in creating diets for dogs, and sure, they're going to make money out of it. Fine, that's what they do. What business doesn't make money? But actually, in the process, they're giving a product that actually is pretty good most of the time.
Yeah, I believe so. Certainly that is my experience. And also a lot of the major food companies, they're not just making pet food, they do a lot of research. It's about feeding pets better, it's about caring for them better. It goes far further than just the commercial, getting the bags of food out the door kind of thing, which I don't think a lot of the general public kind of realise, that they do all that work sort of behind the scenes. And the science behind most of the foods now is immense.
It's huge. And in fact, I think almost everything we know about urine crystals in dogs has come from the food manufacturers.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Most things we know about diabetes as well. So yeah, and there are no human food manufacturers on that scale, are there?
No, we don't tend to eat quite in the same way, do we? We like variety a little bit more as humans, and so we sort of cherry pick from all over the place. I suppose the nearest thing to that would be maybe some of the specialist pediatric formulas and that sort of thing. Baby milks, they're probably produced in a very similar way, with equal amounts of science behind them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your Tesco's ready meal for two probably doesn't have the same nutritional input that a science diet does it?
Possibly not, although the testing it would have had to have gone through will still be fairly extensive as far as its nutritional content and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find, now here's a contentious question, hopefully. Do you find that pet obesity and owner obesity are often closely linked?
Well, I suppose it's actually really difficult to tell because human obesity is so prevalent and so is pet obesity. So do they go hand in hand? Probably there are certain elements that cross over. And it parallels a lot of what we see in children with parents, and it's called the family food environment. And so the pets kind of get included in that family food environment. So if the sort of culture in that family is all around food and treating and, you know, that sort of thing, then that will inevitably get passed to the pet as well. But not always. I mean, we have no more owners at our clinic anyway that have overweight or obesity any more than the general population, which is potentially surprising because you know, where I work, but it's not. And like everything, it's not simple, and it's not the only cause. It is one of them.
And so, what's the problem here? Again, another contentious question. What's the problem with having an overweight dog or cat? They're happy. They're happy with their weight. They haven't got the social jibes or fears of being laughed at or mocked or made to feel inadequate walking down the street. So why not have a perfectly happy, healthy, fat Labrador? Notice how I say healthy.
Yeah, well, there's probably two major things here. So firstly, your Labrador will live probably 2 years less than if it was at a normal weight, I should say, an ideal weight. And its quality of life will be much poorer. So even though they might appear to be happy enough on the outside, I mean, dogs especially, their disposition is happy. They, you know, pretty much happy with, you know, most things. But inevitably, you know, with obesity, you get inflammation. And so any, you know, systemic inflammation like this, you know, you will get a certain level of suffering associated with that, whether it's visible or not, or whether it's, you know, much more hidden, I suppose, from a pet owner's point of view. But there will be damage going on, and there will be things that, you know, will be at that dog or cat's detriment because of the obesity.
Yeah. I'm speaking for a moment as someone who does pretty well out of repairing cruciates in dogs. And you know, orthopedic injuries, orthopedic conditions, to my mind, are probably the most noticeable condition in obese animals. I know there are many, many others, but the most noticeable one, and the one that actually, here's the secret trick: if clients have dogs who are very overweight and have limb problems and arthritis, most of those can have a reduced level of medication or even no medication if they just get their pet to lose weight. But we vets don't tell them that because we want to do the operations. We're like, no, that's not true. Actually, we do tell them, they just don't listen. How can we get them to listen?
How can we get them to listen? Well, it's funny, I was reading an article this week. It was a review article about communication around obesity, which was very interesting because what we, I think, and it was describing in the veterinary profession do is we say, right, you need to do this. You're doing this wrong. Go away and do that. And the problem is with obesity, because there's so much emotional attachment to what's going on in that family house, people feel immediately criticized. And so what they do is they go, I'm not listening to him. He told me my dog was fat, and then, you know, I don't like him. I'm not going to see him again. And so they don't.
You've alienated them, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the way to communicate with them is much more in an understanding, supportive way, using what they want to do, as in their thoughts, their solutions to come to, you know, an end goal that we all want. So yeah, it requires a very different approach. You know, I'm guessing with your cruciate surgeries, you know, we're going to have to do this, I'm afraid, you know, and that's, you know, there isn't a whole lot of other choice, but it doesn't kind of work like that with obesity. It's very different.
Are there any particular questions that you use to try and crack that? Because you're exploring the psychology of the owner, aren't you?
Yeah.
And whether they're accepting that their animal has got a problem before you even start looking at what we're going to do about that. So are there any particular phrases or angles that you take?
Yeah, so I think my favourite question for getting all that information is, I will say to them, how do you feel about your pet's weight, your dog, your cat? Because in asking them that, they can't say yes or no to it. So they have to give me a little bit more.
Yep.
they will either say, oh, he's got no problem, I don't see anything wrong, in which case, okay, we've got a journey to go on here.
Absolutely.
Or they will say, I'm actually quite aware, yeah, we know it's a problem, blah, 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 he's been limping. And, you know, they then will start associating other problems with it. And suddenly I've got a really good idea of what they think and how they're feeling. And then I can take them from there and say, well, you know, if your dog needs a cruciate surgery or something, what about if we got some weight loss? You know, maybe we could get them off medication. And you have to find their motivation. So if, you know, better mobility, less money on medication, whatever it is, to motivate them to want to make the changes themselves.
So you focus in on that one thing that can motivate the client to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about understanding their priorities. I will quite often come to some sort of agreement with them, you know, as in, you know, okay, what do you want to improve? Well, let's work towards that. And have those sort of goals in mind. When one looks at something, we look at it a certain way. So when we're looking at our dogs, we look at their face, we look at how happy they are. We don't necessarily look at their whole body shape. So what we do is we take photos from lots of different angles, and we'll show the owner these photos. And oh God, I didn't realize he looked like that. Because they don't look at them like we would do. So yeah, photos and visual things are very, very motivational. At the university, my consulting room, I have lots of, you know, inspirational pictures, you know, all my before and after pictures up on the wall. And our orthopedic service love using my room because they can look, you know, look what you can do, look what can be achieved, you know. And I probably, out of the referrals that come through the hospital, at least half of the internal referrals are through orthopedics. And I see an awful lot of dogs, pre and post surgery, actually. So for those owners, you know, mobility is going to be their predominant aim. So, you know, I can say with all surety that we can, with weight loss, improve mobility.
It's strange, isn't it? Because it to an owner, it can be quite a harsh thing, or even a human patient, when, and a surgeon probably would phrase it in a different way. But in effect, what the surgeon is saying is, I'm not going to waste 6 hours of my time and my skills and my team's skills and their time and their energy in doing a piece of work that will unravel, because no matter how skillful we are, if you overload that joint or whatever the work is that we're going to do, you are literally going to unravel it, because it will only withstand a certain amount of weight. And you're beyond that particular level. And I'm not prepared to waste your time, your effort, your money, and certainly not my time, my effort, and my money on attempting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of our surgeons do that now. Certainly with our help, they will ask us to do short-term weight loss, you know, to try and get them in a much better position for surgery.
It probably won't be as blunt as that.
It's not just the outcome, is it? It's the anaesthetic itself that carries great risks with
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a surgeon, but I believe doing hip replacements and things like that in a dog with overweight or obesity is much, much harder
absolutely.
You know, than a dog that hasn't. So it's for everything, really. But
absolutely.
It's,
how much of a problem is obesity in England or in the UK?
So the UK has a particularly bad problem. About 65% of dogs, it's estimated, have overweight or obesity. We're one of the worst in the world, sadly. In America, I think their figures are around 55% for dogs and cats. And ours are probably similar for cats. So yeah, over half for sure.
Killing them with kindness.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Which I think, you know, is a phrase that, you know, we've all heard, we've all said, but I don't think it really lands often.
No. But actually, sometimes the very worst thing you can do is to give that dog another little treat.
And because you feel bad, you're probably going to.
But getting back to the food itself, we have, I've lost track of how many dogs and cats we have in this country, because it's increased about 10%, hasn't it, due to lockdown and things. But we're feeding them an awful lot of meat, and we're therefore going on to another problem of, are we overproducing meat in this country, and does that have effects on climate change and on the environment? And so I just want to sort of steer over to this suggestion of feeding dogs and cats insect protein.
Yeah, I am all up for this. Insects are a massively abundant source of protein, which don't have the kind of environmental impact, well, at the moment, that say beef would do to produce. I think as humans, we kind of have to be okay with the fact that the bug burgers are coming. And
the bug burgers?
The bug burgers.
Bug burgers, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've not come across that expression.
a locust hot dog.
Yeah.
Bug burgers. I like
burgers,
that.
Yeah. So, whether it's us or whether it's dogs and cats, we, more and more producers are now producing insect-based foods. I don't know a whole lot about them. There isn't a lot out there yet. It's all very much in its infancy. But yeah, I think we will see an awful lot more in the coming years, definitely.
And I have to say, I tried various insects when I was out in Thailand.
Me too.
Grasshoppers and I can't remember now, the variety of things, mealworms, and they were delicious.
They're perfectly fine. I was eating ant eggs in Mexico, and again, sort of crispy crickets and things like this.
Yeah,
it was quite normal for them. No problem at all. I don't.
There's no difference really to eating prawns, is there?
No, really.
Only exoskeleton.
Only that it's not in our culture to do so yet.
Mike was quite keen on getting a cat and giving it a vegan diet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's to save the planet, you see.
Yeah.
Because if we reduce the amount of requirement of meat, then that will help with climate change and global warming, because we reduce that impact caused by meat production. So therefore, the logical thing is to go vegetarian or ultimately to vegan.
Yeah.
Well, your cat might not agree. So
you have to agree.
Well,
it doesn't get a choice. It gets fed with it.
Well, certainly if your cat could tell you, it would not agree. So vegan diets for cats are really pushing the limits of what is possible. As an obligate carnivore species, they really cannot do without meat in their diet. And even though a lot of the diets that are claiming to be vegan, some of them aren't actually, when you look at the ingredients, which is amusing. But also the synthetic versions of things like taurine that they have in there, we don't know that cats can actually use that as a source of taurine. So just because it's in there doesn't actually mean that it's bioavailable to the cat. And therefore, things could go potentially quite wrong in the future. And the problem with nutrient deficiencies is it doesn't happen quickly. It takes, years often for those problems to become apparent. And by that point, it's too late. So I'd stay away.
It's not only too late, but the connection's lost, isn't it? It can't be the diet, because he's been on that for years.
Yeah. Absolutely. That non-healing wound doesn't make any sense. It's, related to the diet at that point. And it's the other question is it ethical to feed a cat so contrary to its natural needs? And I think from a welfare point of view, I would argue potentially that it isn't ethical, therefore, to do that for cats. So vegan diets for cats are a big problem. Vegetarian diets for dogs, however, that appears to be possible. Certainly vegetable proteins are used often for dogs, and that would be okay.
No steak for you tomorrow.
No, she's having stag beetles.
She's
not stag beetles. No, they're endangered. There's millipedes.
My poor little dog.
Millipedes. Little isopoda burger. I quite like the sound of that.
Oh, I like that expression. The bug burgers.
But insect meals are coming, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think in the next 10 years they'll be far more mainstream. Not just for pets. I mean, they're getting pretty mainstream now for pets anyway, but certainly for humans as well. There will be I have to look out what goes in those ready meals.
I'm going to backtrack, if I may, because we've got a guest, Georgia, here, who is a registered veterinary nurse and a leading expert in nutrition, which is why we've been talking about, excuse me, food all evening. But Georgia, what made you want to be a veterinary nurse in the first place?
So it was a kind of weird combination of things, as I think many people's career paths are, aren't they? So it was, I grew up on small holdings, so we had a handful of sheep and cows and dogs and cats and that sort of thing. So very much surrounded by animals all the time. But I was sort of pretty hands-on, so I was there, getting the chickens when it was time for a chicken on Sunday, and this sort of thing. And I used to really enjoy doing that bit too. And I suppose I did a very odd combination of GCSEs and A-levels, mainly because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I just did what I wanted, as in the things that I liked. And then found myself at a bit of a crossroads, and I sort of fell into it. I saw a job advertised in the job centre for a trainee veterinary nurse, and thought, that might be quite nice. Saw also a job working for a mobile phone company, interviewed for both jobs, got both jobs, and had a right or left situation and I'm so pleased I chose the right one.
Excellent. Are you sure you chose the right one?
Yeah, I am, definitely. And I sort of, you kind of feel like, well, I fell into the right thing, and it's always felt like the right thing. And I love it for many different reasons, and I think those reasons have changed over the years as the job's changed and different positions that I've worked in and that sort of thing.
Well,
and I have to say very quickly, you certainly did choose the right profession, because you have an impressive number of letters after your name, which one can only get if one is within the right profession, I would venture to suggest. And you're actually one of only 25 American veterinary technician specialists in nutrition in the world. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So wow, absolutely amazing.
That's the evolution of the profession, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So specialising as a veterinary nurse has been few and far between until maybe the last 10, 15 years, something like that. And certainly our little nutrition academy is very small still. There are other technician specialisms. So there's sort of, internal medicine and radiography and those sorts of specialists, which have a lot more members. But yes, one of just 25 at the moment. And we're hoping for more, but small group at the moment.
So what are you doing to spread that word and encourage more people?
So I suppose talking about it as often as I can. So, just getting out there and talking to people who want to do more, to nurses in practice who want to learn more. And I teach on the BSAVA Merit Award in nutrition, which is wonderful, because I get to talk to really motivated people about topics we all love. So yeah, just trying to spread nutrition, but also through everything that vet nurses do, you can run nutrition. It comes into every conversation. It can be applied with every client at some point. So yeah, doing what I can.
Would you recommend? I know nothing about this. So, is there a course? Is there a recognised course that people can go on? How do they apply? Where do they go? Should they do it, or not really bother?
Well, I think if they're interested in nutrition, they definitely should do it. But it is a tough course. It's not really a course because it's not a taught course. So you have a year of case collection. So you have to collect in excess of 60 cases and write case reports, and you have a skills list and a knowledge list to fulfill. Right. And then if that isn't all bad enough, then you then have to go and sit an excruciating exam. I had to go to America to do my exam, so I did a 3-day trip to Arizona and back.
3 days?
Yes.
Well, so you flew in, slept, did the exam, and flew back out again.
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's impressive. That's dedication for it. My goodness me. That's incredible.
But I met some lovely people doing it. We were a little group of 5 who were all sitting exams at the same time, and it becomes a really small but very tight-knit community. So it was really good, actually, and I've loved doing it. So yeah, I strongly recommend anyone who does it. I think the problem is, for a lot of people, you need a big case book. So you need to work in either a specialist referral centre, a teaching hospital, somewhere big where nutrition is, lots of feeding tubes, this sort of more intense nutrition is used. I think in general practice, it can be a bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, because I guess at the moment we've just spoken about the obesity side of things, getting dogs and cats to lose weight, but nutrition is more than that. Nutrition drives health. And so you mentioned feeding tubes. If we want dogs and cats to get better, or any animal after surgery, we have to feed those cells. We have to feed those repairing cells. And there are huge differences in the amount of energy and specific nutrients for a healthy animal, as opposed to an animal that's just undergone surgery, just recovering from a major illness, or is on chemotherapy or other therapies. And nutrition plays a key part in maximising the return to full health and maintaining that full health. And that's often overlooked, isn't it? We dole out tablets, or we cut a bit off and say, it'll take a few months to get better, but it'll be fine. And we don't think often enough, actually, we can be really improving the rate of recovery and the extent of recovery by giving a more appropriate diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why nutrition is so cool. It's why I love it so much, because the difference that it can make. And yeah, all those patients that need to recover in some way, but not just them, all those other patients with various diseases of some sort. You mentioned cancers and sort of other progressive diseases. We know what the endpoint's going to be. It's not great. It's coming. We know that. But for instance, with renal disease, we can extend life expectancy with the right diet. I mean, it's massive. There's nothing else that will do that other than diet.
Absolutely. When I first qualified 20 years ago, we were told with renal failure in cats, well, there's nothing really you can do. Nothing to do. And then some tablets came out, and maybe. And then there was a dietary change, and suddenly these cats that were diagnosed with kidney failure, that we'd say to the owners, do you want us to put it to sleep now, or do you want to come back in a month? We're saying, well, it's I'm afraid likely that within the next 4 or 5 years we could be looking at medication for the final year of this cat's life, and it's food, and what a huge difference that is. It's massive.
No, absolutely. And you were mentioning urinary crystals before. I think urinary is another place where, through diet change, you can have an enormous effect. But I mean, most diseases can be affected by diet in a positive way. And so, yeah, for me, it should be talked about much more, and, with every patient and that sort of thing, because it does make such a difference. But.
Yeah.
We quite often hear stories of reversal of type 2 diabetes as well. Yeah,
certainly in cats. You would hope to send them into remission with correct diet and weight loss. It's certainly possible, not in every case, but it is possible. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
And people.
Yes, of course.
And people.
Yeah.
So amazing thing, food. I couldn't live without it.
I'm going to get my iPad out for a second.
Yeah, no, Georgia, I don't know whether you're aware that we have this this running theme on Veterinary Rambling of something called 60 seconds CPD. You've come across that?
I am aware, yes.
You are aware.
I've been watching and listening. Yeah, I was very impressed with the hummus one the other day, I have to say. And the ferret nurse.
That was great, wasn't it? Like the hummus bit.
Almost.
So would you have a little 60-second CPD thing for us?
I do, and actually, I hope you don't mind. I kind of took the opportunity to do something slightly different, if that's okay.
We love different.
What we like is when people take on the 60-second CPD challenge. That's what we like. So if you're prepared to do that, Georgia, we'd be thrilled.
Okay, so I've written a poem.
Okay.
Fantastic.
It's not necessarily a good poem, but I've written a poem.
As long as it's in iambic pentameter with a Tennysonian type style, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, or to a 4/5 rhythm or something along those lines. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so Georgia, what is your 60-second CPD on?
So it is on obesity, and I should maybe just give you a little bit of the background on this, because this came about not just because I was jealous of the hummus one, but also because somebody asked me the other day, I was on a panel discussion, and they said, what's your take home? And I had about 10 seconds to give what my take home was. And my take home was that you've got to weigh them and weigh them again. Mm-hmm. And so these two things coupled together, this is what created this poem. And so the poem is called A Take Home Message.
Okay. All right.
I might need a drink before we go.
Oh, I would have a drink. It's your Baileys. Your medicinal.
Have a sip. Have a sip, and I'll key you in, and I'll get my clock, and we'll start you off. So, okay. So Georgia, 60-second CPD on weigh them and weigh them again, starting now.
Obesity in pets is a difficult topic because some don't recognise it or treat it, let alone stop it. Obesity is seriously damaging to health, which is sad, with reduced life expectancy, poor mobility and coats that look drab. This is not just bad life choices, this is a disease, so no laughing, no pointing, have compassion and treat them, please. To make a start, we must recognise that all pet owners are not to blame. We should weigh them and weigh them and weigh them again. So what are the causes of obesity, you might say? Isn't it simply just too much food every day? Are the treats the problem? As a pet owner, how can you say no when the dogs are all drooling at you and the cat's in tow? Well, the genetics, the environment, the breed and the sex all have an effect. So let's get some context. If obesity was simple, we would have found the cure. Instead, we have to watch our high incidence endure. So let's start small, get the basics right. Speak to your owners. You never know, they just might actually want your help with a problem they can't hide. Support your owners, let them know you're on their side. The food you choose must be safe for obesity care. Hey, no stealing the cat's food. Those with obesity must not share. Body condition score every pet, treat them all the same. We must help every one of them. So weigh them and weigh them and weigh them again.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my goodness me.
Wow.
That is the most amazing thing I've heard.
Thank you very much.
I think probably on Veterinary Ramblings, that's I've heard some pretty amazing things. Georgia, that's amazing. Look, I'm gonna go back to Publications Committee, which we're both on, and say that we need to immediately get an anthology of veterinary poetry, and you are comprising that anthology.
Oh, I'd love to. That'd be ace.
That's incredible.
That's so original. Absolutely brilliant, Georgia. Thank you very much indeed. That wins on so many levels. That's absolutely superb.
You know, I've got a CPD certificate. I reckon we might have some good quality stuff from you, Georgia. I must say, I think I should have put more effort into my CPD certificate, because that was just amazing. There isn't a single poet on my CPD certificate. There's no Alexander Pope, no Tennyson, nothing. But what there is gratitude at you telling us so many wonderful facts, telling us your story so well, giving advice to owners, and that amazing poem. Fantastic.
Let's see the certificate. Come on.
Here we go. And I'll talk you through it. So this is Certificate of Meaty Goodness. This certifies that the gourmandizer of our luncheon board of mental nosh has dieted well off the plate of knowledge. Amazing. So there's a few pictures on it, and so we've got good food and bad food in most cases. So here we go. Little light breadsticks, good food.
Oh, okay.
I thought they were asparagus.
I'm wondering about the giraffe's butt, I have to say.
Croissanted mille-fois, croissants, bad food but delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Bats, we know, bats, bad food. A nice gamay and some oysters.
Oh,
good food, but in moderation, I'd say.
Don't like oysters.
Here's a fat retriever that I operated on, repaired the cruciate ligament. And look, unfortunately, if you're only listening to this, you won't be able to see the matchstick-sized legs compared to this huge body. This was a 3-year-old retriever. Now, the picture looks like a 13-year-old retriever, doesn't it?
That's sadly.
And
like a furry seal.
Poor little fat dog. So I repaired both cruciates and then went on and did surgery on both elbows, and then went on and arthrodesed one of the wrists. And the owner, who was constantly trying to diet her dog, got nowhere. And sadly, I feel it was my fault. I could have done more. To get her to lose weight. Anyway, here we go. There's an insect at the bottom here. This is a rhinoceros beetle. We may all be having those on our toast in a few years' time. And you alluded to this earlier. There's a giraffe's bottom. Is that giraffe fat or what? That is a fat giraffe. Look, I'm going to.
I would say it has a little excess tissue going on there.
There is just wrinkles of fat on that giraffe, and I was appalled. I saw this giraffe at a zoo. I won't say the name of the zoo. I don't want to name and shame, but. You know who you are. Look at this. You know that giraffe's bum. You are feeding that giraffe too much. Okay, look, with poor nutritionally available acacia leaves. Great, fine, do that. I suspect this is getting Timothy hay.
Yeah.
That's a fat giraffe.
It's probably perhaps that's the zoo that does a meet and greet for the guests, and
they do indeed
go along and feed the animal.
Absolutely.
And get the chance to hand feed the giraffe.
Give it some Weetabix.
Yeah. Well, so you're handing over to me to say, if you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight, then don't forget to subscribe, click like, tell your friends about us, and if you've got any subjects or topics you want us to cover, I'm sure you know us well enough by now to know that we're quite happy to take on any particular subject. Then get in touch with us, and we'll listen to what you have to say and do our best to accommodate you. So, no, that's brilliant. So all it really remains for me to say is, Georgia, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Georgia, Poet Laureate of the veterinary world.
Oh, thank you, and thank you very much for having me.
The educational Poet Laureate of the veterinary world.
Absolutely.
So I'll raise a glass to you, although it's my ceramic mug tonight. Georgia, may your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Next week on Veterinary Ramblings, we are joined by a former BVNA president, the wonderful Wendy Nevins.
Join us as we learn more about her and what makes her tick.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.